Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Thrive Talks. We just give it a minute till people who are in the waiting room can join us. But thank you so much for joining us today. Amita, how are you? I'll just introduce you in 30 seconds to a minute properly, but I hope you're doing well today.
I'm doing well, Shreyasi, and good to be here and good to meet everybody. And unfortunately, I don't think we can see everybody, right?
We can't.
But it's great to see everybody, actually.
Yes, we use a webinar format for this.
I hope everybody is fine, doing well, getting ready to get back to office. And
yes, that's the theme.
I'm looking forward to it.
Great, excellent. So let me just begin, and by the time we get to introductions, more people will join, so they'll still be able to catch the meat of the conversation. So welcome to everyone who's joining us as we speak. My name is Shreyasi Singh. I'm one of the founders of Harappa and the company CEO. Harappa, as I hope many of you know, is an online learning institution, and we've developed a curriculum of what we call Thrive skills, or cognitive, social, and behavioral skills for enterprises and professionals who want to lead themselves and their teams and organizations to great success. Thrive Talks we began earlier this year, in fact, just before the second wave, because we felt like the people were on top of mind for all organizations and all our clients and co-collaborators. And we love having conversations with talent custodians who wanted to create a format for that. And it's been really, it's been wonderfully enriching for us. We took a bit of a break at Thrive Talks for the last 3 or 4 months, and we're restarting sort of season 4 really, and launching it with this episode with Amita Maheshwari. And let me just introduce Amita to you and get into the season's theme. This theme, again, what's top of mind? We always like to have top of mind conversations on people and talent and workplaces. And this season is all about getting real about hybrid, and not just a blanket statement. But hello, Amita. Thank you once again for joining us on Thrive Talks and on our first episode of the new season on getting real about hybrid. Everyone, Amita is the head of HR for APAC and ME at the Walt Disney Company, in the direct-to-consumer and international businesses for the Walt Disney Company, which all of us know is obviously the largest media powerhouse in the world. Her leadership has played, I think, several roles, and I think she's an incredibly enriching career trajectory at the larger Disney group. She's diversified the talent pools, I think has led so many mergers and acquisitions for the Star India group, including ones with Asianet, Star Sports, Disney Plus, Hotstar, and Ma TV. She's also director on the Star India board and is currently leading the high-profile mission of integrating 21st Century Fox acquisition by Disney in her region. She's a reflective. Her family first policy is one of the things that she's really well known for, and more kudos to her for being able to do that. And before this role, obviously, she's held leadership roles in talent and people and organizational development across industries for Asian Paints, G Capital, Genpact, and MetLife. She's a passionate do-gooder as well as on the board of Care India. Thank you, Amita, and thank you for all the good work you've done so far.
Thank you, Shreyasi. I really look forward to talking to you and the team, which is invisible on the screen, but there in our life. And thank you all for, I know with work from home and office and everything, taking out time for these is very tough. So thank you for taking this time out and sharing your time with me. And I do hope I add some value today, and please feel free to just ask any question you have. So
yes. So everyone, the way Thrive Talks work is we've taken 3 broad themes with Amita. One is her decision making for why she has decided for her companies to go to hybrid, and we'll delve into that. We spend 10 to 15 minutes on that. I'll start the conversation with some questions I'm dying to ask her, but so many of you have already sent us questions already, and I will take some of those as well. Then we'll go to a second theme, which is very interesting, about the differences, cultural and workplace differences between her offices in India and offices that she's observed outside of India. And there's some very critical things there. And the third theme that we will finish with is very interesting, about what's the difference between people we all have brought into organizations who've hired us remotely and are now coming hybrid, as opposed to pre-pandemic teams who are coming back hybrid. So those are the 3 themes, and we will stop for questions from the audience at the end of every 15 minutes, at the end of every theme. So I'm diving into the first theme, Amita, on the decision making for hybrid work, because this is a live challenge for many companies still. We are still in the process of either making that decision or implementing that decision in some way. How and why have you made the decision to bring your workforce back into offices? And what parameters did you consider while making this decision?
So see, it's been almost 20 months when all of us have been working remotely. And we are in a lot of live entertainment business and also production. So a lot of our people actually never went remote. They were all our essential services employees were always in office. Then we went and did IPL, and we had almost we created a bubble. It was a bubble of first in kind across the globe, where we had 700 people actually in the bubble in India and Dubai, and they were there in the bubble for like, I think 60, 70 days at a stretch for the duration of the tournament. So they actually were on site working through the weekends and through the night and day. So so there are multiple things. One, I think COVID surge has gone down in many of our markets. Okay, in India also, when we see, and so our decision making has actually been, the core philosophy has been that we will put employees' health and safety as the foremost criteria. Okay, even if government has opened up, we have not opened our offices when we thought that it's not safe for our employees to come back. So that's really the core philosophy. The second tier of decision making is really driven by what is the government regulations in each of our market, how much of opening up happening, how much they are allowing, and the third is really the number of COVID cases. See, as an organization, we were ahead of the government in all our markets. So China, where we had China, I know APAC is part of my remit, and China was the first country to get COVID. We actually closed our offices in China way before any other company did it, and way before government recommended that close the office. We actually closed the office almost 8-10 days before the government's regulation came, and we said, please work from home. We don't want to risk your life. Please stay at home and do work. Similarly, in India, we closed the office way before the government, actually 22nd March, government came up. We actually closed almost a week before that. So for us, the employees' safety and well-being and their health is very, is paramount. So that's one biggest criteria. And then and why we are now taking the decision to open is also, there are multiple things. One is that, our employee, there is a fatigue now of working from home. The boundaries between personal and professional has got completely blurred. And last 20 months for us have been actually, I would say, more crazier and busier than earlier. We launched Disney Plus Hotstar in March 2020, the country closed, and we launched in April Disney Plus Hotstar. So we had to kind of continuously learn, figure out how to do things and move, machines and equipment to people's homes, set up offices, all of that. And then do the IPL bubble, all of that. So I think there's also one set of people who want to get back, and people are living in smaller houses. They want to get to meet people. So that's one thing. Also, other thing is that I personally believe that we all, when we work together, more than the work, it was also the meeting at the coffee machine or in the lobby, or half of an. We are a very not so, I would say, structured organization. So for us, a lot of discussion would be just you walk into someone's room, you meet them in the corridor, and decision will get taken. So and then lots of those fun. So we are a storytelling organization. And I feel that one thing which is really getting depleted is the relationship reserve, the cash reserve, which we have all built it. That's kind of getting depleted because Zoom is a lot more transaction. You get on a call, you finish that work, and you get off. A lot of time we don't even bother to ask, how are you doing? What's happening in your life when you're on Zoom call. But when you meet someone in the office after the meeting, you stay back for 10 minutes and, you chat, or you get in the meeting 5 minutes before and you're talking about all kinds of stuff which builds those. So that cash reserve. And second thing, which I think, is really, it's time. I think it's time. We don't want to compromise on people's health and safety, but we also want to slowly get people back at work.
Understood. So what you're saying that all the decision to work from home was on people's physical health and safety from disease. And one of the big reasons for you to bring them back is relationships health, and the health of collaboration and camaraderie to do that. And here, and I think all of us completely, I think many of us will resonate with exactly that. But I have spoken even to young employees at Harappa or friends and family otherwise. They say, hey, is the decision to go hybrid now difficult for companies to defend and advocate, given that many companies, including yours, whether launching Disney Plus, Hotstar, whether pulling off an IPL, which is an unprecedented feat in another country, in two countries, through that, because we've all seen so much innovation, so much can do, and actually an increase in productivity. Do companies now sound disingenuous when they say you have to come back to work, or you think there was a shelf time for work from home and it can't last forever?
So see, one thing which has really changed, and I think that's something where I personally believe that COVID has really pushed the whole world from use of technology or the way we look at work or the way people perceive the work-life balance. And we're hearing about all this great resignation and people re-looking at their priorities. All of that has shifted. So to say that remote work its self-life is over is not really true. Everybody is looking for flexibility. And as an organization, if we do not provide that flexibility, people are going to go and look for a job where they will get that flexibility. So we are very clear that whatever we do, so this whole plan of bringing people to work, again, flexibility is now going to be at the core of it. And when we say flexibility, we'll still have some essential people who will work full time in the office. They'll, we call them on site. They'll be there in the office. We are now actually actively looking for what kind of roles where we don't need for people to come to office at all, or they may come just once a month. And then, but large part of our population is going to be on hybrid, where they will come to office anywhere between 2 days to 4 days, or 1 day to 4 days. And everybody is expecting. So some days in the week will become remote. It may not be fully remote, but so remote is going to be here and it's going to stay. And it's important for the organizations to accept it and embrace it. Because I was just looking at some survey by NASCOM, 70% of the organization have said that hybrid is here to stay and they are going to go hybrid. And we are also looking at we're seeing that actually, especially in technology space, in the developers and coders, they don't want to even apply for a job if it's not flexible or if there's no remote options available. So we are very, very clear that we want to go to hybrid, provide the flexibility to the employee, and where they're able to balance their personal and professional life.
And tell me, are you anticipating, because this is a pretty bold, this flexibility becomes its own hydra-headed problem because everybody interprets flexibility differently, and all our needs for flexibility is different, right? And team heads will have very individual preferences in the way that they work. What are you worried about, or even excited about, maybe both, that some teams will become more remote, more hybrid, some teams more on-site, some teams more work from home? And how do you think that changes the overall culture of the company, right? And on this also, are you worried about the chaos and the ambiguity that can come from this no one uniform policy for everyone? Because then it's like dependent, then maybe I want to change my manager because I then now want a manager who has a similar flexibility muscle as me, right?
See, flexibility doesn't mean uniformity, and we are not looking at that. So even when we had most people working on remote, our sports team was working full time, or our essential services people who had the responsibility of putting the channel up were in office every day. So I think our people and the way the whole, our core of the decision making is that we trust our employees and they are very mature and they understand what organization needs. So I can tell you for the last 20 months, when across the globe, we have had all the essential services people who come into office, and they've not never kept saying that, why am I in office while HR and other functions and all, or 95% of the organization is not in office. So I think, so that's one. Second is in terms of really culture, yes, it is going to, we need to really do a lot of work on that, because earlier everybody was either in office before pandemic, or nobody was in office in a team, in most teams. But now some people will be in office on some days, the rest of the team will be in office in some other days, and some will not be in office at all. You know, so how, so I think the role of leader and manager is going to be most critical. And how do we sensitize and train them differently to to ensure that when they're doing a team meeting, they're conscious about people who are remote, and ensuring that they engage with them equally. Out of sight doesn't mean, out of mind. Or, how do they ensure that decision making doesn't get done now walking in the corridor or in the coffee machine, but you make sure that that team member which was supposed to be part of this decision making discussion has been invited, and we get on a Zoom call and close it, versus just meet 3 of us and close it, versus 5 which was supposed to be part of this decision making. So I think that mindset shift we need to really build, and that discipline will need to be built. Because if we don't learn from this, so earlier it was easier, during the pandemic period, everybody just got on the Zoom call and we did the meeting. But now there'll be temptation to say, oh, some people are in the office, call them and let's do the discussion and finish it, without realizing that no, there are the 3 people who may be not in the office on those days or working remote. So I think that culture change is extremely important for the organizations to keep a watch out and constantly sensitize and talk to people. Also, how do we continuously keep integrating people who will work on remote? If there are roles we define who will be working on remote, how do we still engage with them? How do we still maybe build a rhythm to say, okay, once a month, twice a month, you come to office, and there would be, some meetings for which you come, or some engagement initiatives which will be done. So these are the cultural change, I think, and at Star and in Disney, the one thing with which we have always worked with is that we trust our people, that they will do their work. So we don't need to monitor and police them. That we've never done that. And we want to just make sure that, that's the trust which will take the organization forward to on hybrid.
Sure. No, I think you've said many interesting things, and I'm glad to hear that teams which were not coming in, teams which were coming in had to be at the nature of their work. Did not feel like it was unfair that some teams were completely remote for 21, because I've spoken to some talent custodians in manufacturing, for example, where there has been this push and pull about this fairness of some teams having to come every day, or in banking, because bank branches as essential services were opened absolutely throughout, from March 2020, and obviously corporate headquarters of banks weren't. But I think we're living through really sort of a sociological experiment, because I keep saying that we knew a way to work before the pandemic. Then for 15 months, we learned another way to work. And now actually we're learning the third way to work, which is hybrid, because a hybrid is not a continuation of work from home. And in some ways, I actually find it much more challenging. And so a lot remains to be seen about what happens to informal networks and its role in your productivity and your success at the workplace, which is the point that you're making about corridors and decision making. A lot about appraisals and performances and mentorship and coaching of remote only roles and what happens to that. And I guess some of this we'll all only be able to discover, I think, 12 months, 18 months out. I don't think we know everything yet.
Yeah. And honestly, I don't see there'll be any chaos. I think our employees are very mature, and they understand, and they have seen what we've done in the last 15 to 18 months. We kept the people at core. In case of pandemic, our company actually went completely out of the way to help people. So they've seen that company truly cares. That's been core of our organization. So whatever we do, but I'll tell you, it's not that there won't be hesitancy to come back to work. There'll be that. People will say, oh, we were working very efficiently, so why do we need to come back to work? And that's where, we need to really think through. And that's why what we've done is that we said we will be, leading by the example. So we last 2 months I've been going to office. All our leadership team is coming to office, especially in India. But in rest of the market, we've seen the flexibility and resiliency shown by our people. I would say Singapore market, I've opened like maybe 7 to 8 times. I've opened the office, closed the office, opened the office, closed the office. In right now, across all my APAC, only Hong Kong, China, and Taiwan, where we have 70-80% employees coming to office. Rest all are closed. Again, we've like open, close, open, close. In India, not done that, but so people have kind of got used to, and so I don't see any chaos. People will.
Sure, that's great. I like your optimism. I'm going to jump on this theme to put 2 or 3 questions from the audience, and then we'll go back to your India and the rest of the world discussion that I find fascinating and want to get into. We have a question coming in from Coralie Ansari, of the Director of Human Resources at Condé Nast in India, I'm guessing. And her question is, would you consider the developing hybrid way of working in corporates to be the natural progression of diversity and inclusion? Are you seeing that it's another way or parameter for inclusion?
Yeah, I think that is, especially it's made for people with younger children, women employees, or even people with elderly care, or people with health issues or disability. It's made it much more easier working from home. Okay, and hybrid and flexibility will continue, more not in full way, but if they come only 3 days in office, then 2 days they're at least able to manage. So I think it will increase, and I personally feel that it will really add to the diversity and inclusion efforts we are doing, and especially for women employees who have to take care of younger kids or family. There a lot of time we'll lose them after maternity, or when there's an event in the family in terms of children's exams or board exams, or parents unwell or things like that. I think that I'm hoping that we'll see less of loss there.
That's great. That's something to look forward to for sure. Another question coming in from Sabyasachi Card, who's a manager at Navabharat Ventures. And he's asking that what are the basic attributes to get success in a hybrid workforce? And how does one develop these attributes systematically?
So as I look at it, for me, trust and empathy are 2 basic attributes, which, at the heart of really making hybrid successful. We need to stop kind of measuring and looking at how many days the person is coming to office or how much time they're spending in office. That cannot be the criteria for assessment at all. Second is empathy, because, even though we open the office, we are telling our employees that even if we open the office, if you have something to take care of at home, if your kid's school is not opened up, or if you have elder care to take care of, you can continue to work remotely till you need it. So I think that empathy is very important. The other thing which is going to be very important is continuous communication, telling them how we are thinking, what's going to happen, giving them clarity and being very transparent about any decisions we are taking and anything we are doing. So these are, in my mind, really the attribute for making hybrid successful.
And this is from company to employees. What would your recommendation be for attributes for employees now to develop to be successful in the hybrid world?
I think for employees to be successful, for them to be more open and talk about if they have an issue, and also for them to really take charge, because what will happen a lot of time in hybrid, you are not there in front of your manager and HR and leadership team as much as you were before pandemic. Okay, so shouting out for taking up projects, showcasing what the work you're doing will become. So they have to really, I think, in the new world, a lot of individual responsibility to take charge of their career is going to be very important.
Yeah, I think so. If you want flexibility, with flexibility, like they say, with power comes great responsibility.
Yeah, so
with flexibility comes great discipline. I think flexibility needs discipline, individual discipline for each one of us.
And accountability, and ensuring that, whether you are at work or you're working from home, there is a sanctity about your work hours and your outputs, or more outputs than work hours, honestly.
Yeah, there's another very interesting question that's come in from Surabhi Dixit, who's the head of leadership and HR programs at Tata Group. She's asking, some organizations plan to go back to a complete on-site working model, the way it was pre-COVID. What's your advice for them? And I actually know of 3 or 4 organizations, including a broadcast television studio, which was completely remote for most people for 18 months and have gone back to 5 days in office, like exactly like before. So what's your advice for organizations?
To tell you, each organization to its own, but what I'm going to say is my personal belief. And my personal belief is that last 18 to 20 months, almost now 20 months, has brought in a lot of change and change in expectations of our employees. And it has shown that we can work remote and we can trust our people to still deliver when they were sitting at home. And actually, most organizations have done better than what they were doing before pandemic, a lot more. So I would hate to go back if with these, these kind of incidents happens, like, this pandemic happened after 100 years. So it's like,
Yes.
in a generation, our generation has seen it, fortunately, unfortunately. But if we don't learn from something, this kind of such a big change of such a big, thing in our lifetime, and if we don't change with that learning and go back to the old ways of doing things, I think is a complete loss of what we learned in the 18 months. So I won't recommend, and I would like to kind of go back to the old ways of working, because every time when you get a, it's like a jhatka you've got in life. And if we don't change, and we as human being, the best thing about us is that we learn from every experience. And if we don't learn and we just go back to the old ways of doing work, it's such a loss of this last 18 months of hardship, professional, personal losses, everything, to say we will just go back to doing what we were doing in the past. I would really urge every organization to say, at least pick some things from the last 18, 20 months and make things for better for future. Because, I honestly think that all employees are looking for flexibility. We can go back to being the old ways of working, but there are 70% of the employees who are saying, we will change. So for you to retain talent will become extremely difficult.
Such a waste to waste a crisis, right? If you don't learn.
Such a waste to waste a crisis.
One more last question from the audience on this one, and then we'll move to the next theme. Do you think the gig, and you spoke to this about the need for flexibility that we're seeing in the workforce, coming from the workforce, do you think that the gig economy is giving competition to organizational workforce cultures?
I won't say it's giving competition. I would say it's a good addition. Okay, both are going to stay now in the new world. Okay, organization structures are not going to, or the ways of working of full-time employment is not going to go away. But at the same time, a lot of people will move to gig economy because they want more flexibility than what an organization will provide. So if an organization can provide the full flexibility, they'll continue to work with the organization, or they will want to go and do something else along with just doing some work to make sure that they earn their living. So I personally don't think these are both competing with each other. It's also good for the organization, because when at times you don't need a person full time for many years, you need someone for 6 months, 1 year, and having a good quality, good number of people coming into gig economy also helps the organization to ensure that we are able to get people to just do that short project and move on, and the employee moves on. So you're not stuck with a certain skill sets or certain people. So I think it's a good addition, and both will do well, and both will do great.
Yeah, it's like human Maslow's needs. Some of us need, at some stages in your career, for 20 years, you will need the stability of a full-time job, and that's proper engagement. Then maybe 7, 8, 10 years of your own career, you want autonomy and you'll optimize for it for whatever reason.
Yes.
And I think that's the one thing I feel like as professionals, we have to get used to, that we will also choose very different phases in our 30, 40-year-old career. Absolutely. Sometimes we will optimize for stability, and sometimes for accelerated growth, sometimes for pause and sabbatical, and sometimes for autonomy and flexibility. And I think we should, and I think that's actually excellent, but you have to take charge of that. I think interesting question coming from Gopa also on this, Amita. She said that, and we all saw this, I think especially with younger employees, right? I think every company saw, people move back to their hometowns, not have to incur food, commute, rent costs in really expensive cities in the country, and feeling very comfortable there. How does hybrid really work for them? Because even in all our kind of hybrid at Harappa, we are all on a 3 days in office, 2 days at home. It does mean that you have to come back to the city of your office, right? How does it happen when you want to stay at home, hometown?
So see, I'll tell you, there are some roles which can continue to be in hometown, especially in the tech side. Okay, not everywhere. So you can't have a salesperson sitting at home in Agra or Jabalpur and doing sales in Mumbai, because once everything opens, the clients will start meeting. Right now, nobody's meeting. So that also can happen. So the only thing which we are trying to do is we will give enough time for people to come back, settle in, find a house. If anybody has anything, they want another 3 months to stay at home so that the transition is easier. We'll help them do the transition. So there will be resistance. Let me tell you that there will be resistance, but we need to just make it more smooth for people, give them enough time to kind of adjust, come back. But they when it opens up, people will also realize that if they continue to just, let's take if their role is based in Mumbai and they're sitting in Patna or anywhere else, then they're going to miss out on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I think employees will, and we need to handhold. We need to give them enough transition time.
Yeah.
We need to be flexible. So
I think the one skill, interesting. And I think managers, we also really need to equip managers to have these very difficult life conversations with the teams about, are you sure you want to do this now? You can take a remote only job, but maybe that's not what is on the path to the kind of growth you're seeing. These are very complicated conversations for first-time managers, even middle managers to have.
And globally, if you see most organizations, especially in the US, what they have said is, if you're going to go work from your hometown, you're going to adjust your salary.
Yes, because we paid you New York salary, and expat salaries always pegged to the towns and the purchasing power indexes of those cities,
even
right?
Even in India, I think organizations will start looking at those things. So then the employees have to decide, are they okay to take a cut if they're going to sit and work from smaller towns, and they can't continue to then get paid home. We haven't even really looked at any of these things right now, because right now we are focused on saying, how do we get people back and make it very smooth for them.
Yeah, I'm jumping to our theme too, which is the India and rest of world. And you alluded to that a little bit, a few minutes back, in sense that obviously China went, it started from China. And obviously that you shot Singapore example is obviously the most interesting in the way of, you said that you've done dozens of start, stop. China hasn't really stopped for an extended period of time, although it was the first one to stop. India possibly had the most prolonged work from home, and now you're starting to do that. I'm very curious to know that, what are the, beyond the way the virus progressed and government regulation, culturally, what were the different contexts in being able to do this? And what has happened after 18? Is there a difference in the agility muscle, innovation muscle, collaboration muscle of teams in your China offices, which didn't really shut, in your Singapore offices, which did shut and stop, and in your India offices, which had the longest work from home? What feels different?
So honestly, I haven't seen much of cultural differences, because employees are all, human beings are human beings, and stress of COVID was there everywhere, and people were just following what we were asking them to do. Go back home, don't come to office. People have just followed. So I think a lot of resiliency and flexibility shown by our people. They've trusted HR and organization to give them the right advice, and they've always they put their life and trust in us to say, we will always take a decision which is good for them. But there are some interesting thing which I saw in terms of cultural difference before and after pandemic. So for example, if I look at my Japan business and Japan team, you know, Japan as a company, a country where, you know, people look up to leader. There's lots of, you know, follow the leader kind of this thing, and culturally they're you know, they would listen to what the leadership is saying. And then there's also things like, if leader is in the office, everybody will stay in office. Even if the leader will ask them to go home, they would like wait for the leader to leave. And you know, those some of those cultural nuances were there. And you know, and people there travel a lot. So like, you know, people travel 1.5 to 2 hours, 2.5 hours to come to office. And our leader, who is, you know, she's Carol, who's really, really nice leader. She would always tell the team saying, you can work from home, but nobody would really work from home before pandemic. That they would all want to come to office because leader is in the office, so they should all be. Now everybody has got used to working from home, and we were just talking to her yesterday, and she was saying, how do I get these people back to office? Earlier they would want to work from home. Now they don't want to come to office, but they're saying, why do we need to come to office? And it's going to be like that transition. So I think that comfort of saying, okay, we can still work without the leader, those changes have happened. People are able to take a lot more decisions and do their own work. I think that's and have become more independent. They're collaborating through the Zoom. They don't need always a leader to bring the team together. I think these are really big cultural changes and the way people are looking at and the mindset change, which is brought on.
I've actually spent 4 years in Japan, so I know that sort of it has a very unique office culture, right? Of everybody staying, everybody then together going out for Friday drink. It has a it's even more ritualistic, I think, as a workplace than India is about everybody doing one thing. So this is a pretty massive change for them.
Yeah.
Any other differences from any of your other offices that you've noticed?
No, I haven't really. What we did was actually we learned from one market and transition stuff to other markets. Like with China, when that happened, so there was no code book, there was nothing, no rule book, there was nothing available even at the Disney corporate level. And my team had to really figure all the protocols and all the things. And then when it started hitting rest of the way, even US, we actually got the China team to share everything. So I think there is a lot more cultural sharing. The other thing, I think the learning has become much more regionless. So one program we do in APAC, India people joining, we have started doing the whole APAC and India common mentoring program. So I think that's a big change. The boundaries have become much more thinner and people are talking much more than what they were doing earlier.
Nice.
That's
and I think
that's
a very big thing, right? That even when we haven't traveled, in some ways, it's easier for us to come together.
Absolutely.
And I think I don't think there's ever been, I think what's also led to that, in my sense, is this universality of emotion. I don't think there was ever any other occurrence that had the same level of fear. You know, everything which is the pandemic has been such a shared human experience across the globe, right?
And sharing of loss, sharing of pain, all of that has really, I mean, it's brought people closer much more than what it was earlier.
Okay, great. I'm going to jump to theme 3, and we have around 20 minutes and finish with that. Is this conversation that we had set up for remote hires versus the pre-pandemic staff, right? And the pre-pandemic teams. So, you know, I know that you said you quoted some number, I think 800, if I'm not mistaken, that, you know, having hired so many people remotely at scale, what are the innovations and opportunities that your HR teams leveraged and were able to implement successfully? First, to be able to even hire so many people at that.
See, I mean, there would be organizations who would have hired 100, 10,000 of, the larger organizations. We've hired still, I would say, reasonable size number, but more complex because we hired largely in our direct-to-consumer business, so more technologists, more this thing. The good thing was that even before pandemic, we had a very strong hiring and onboarding engine. Okay, so that really the only thing we had to learn to do was how do we quickly take. Okay? But we were doing a lot of it online because we had people joining at different locations. And we were doing actually most of the onboarding, especially for India, was done from Mumbai. So a lot of it was already online. A lot of our backend processes were all digitized. So, whether it's hiring process, whether it's recruitment process, whether it's attrition management process, all of that is already digitized many years back. So those really came in very, very handy. And so that helped. But we had to really look at how do we engage differently, and not just with the new hire, but even for employees. So and especially with the mental stress, all of that. So there was a huge amount of focus on how do we think of new engagement initiatives, what kind of wellness sessions we do. All managers and leaders started doing yoga classes. Company was doing yoga classes, but I've seen my leaders and managers doing Zumba classes, cooking
Wow.
things like that. I think people got very, very innovative and imaginative. They did like photography competition of home photography, stuff like that. So that was interesting. And it is it does require a lot more effort with the new hires who are joined remotely by the team leader and HR to ensure that they get integrated, they understand. So we actually, in many of our locations, we made office videos to show them how the office looks like, because we can't take them to office, so let's take the office to them. So those are the things which were really done to integrate them.
You think that, say, imagine somebody who used to hire the company before the pandemic, right? At 6 months, at 9 months, at 12 months, at 18 months, which is the tenure of the first person you would have hired remotely, would be at 18 months or 20 months right now. Is there a difference in the way that they feel connected to the organization or generally feel a part of the organization, as opposed to somebody who used to join pre-pandemic and what they felt at 6 months, 9 months, 12 months?
So I'll tell you the biggest difference what I see, and actually today only I was talking to about it with my leadership team meeting in APAC, where someone was talking about a party which happened 3 years back, and some people got drunk and they were pulling each other's legs. And I said, that's the difference which this pandemic has made. As we are a storytelling company, and people have so many stories about office parties, of fights, of getting together, or someone having a crisis or someone having a good time, which the remote joiners are completely missing out on. They don't have stories. We may have some Zoom stories of some goof up happening on Zoom, but not such interesting stories of, oh, we went to this offsite and this is what happened, and we drank this particular wine, or this was what there, and that food, or this event, or this fight happened, someone screamed in the office. Because at June, I think everybody is at their best behavior most of the time. So biggest thing which is really gone missing is the stories which you have, which you will remember, which you will tell, not just to your team members, but to your family, to your next generation, or when you retire. So those memories and all are I think that's the depletion. And that's where I think that there is. So we had a cash reserve of relationship, emotional thing, which we have depleted, but they haven't got the opportunity to build that reserve for themselves.
Reserve for them. And so then do you feel that, your remote hires are more resistant, you think, to come back to a hybrid model than the pre-pandemic teams? Is there any difference you're seeing there?
No, not really. Actually, especially I've seen in my team, a lot of people were very happy about first time coming to office. So what we are doing is that I've just asked my HR team and managers to say that, how do we make it exciting for people to come back? And especially people are coming to office for the first time. How do we kind of, put together a catch-up program, or put together a, give them an office tour? Can we make the first day back in office as no meeting day, so that they just go around, see the facility, talk to the team members whom they've only seen, on Zoom, or talk to them on phone. So honestly, we've not yet started. It's only the leadership team which is coming. We will, and we are still, we've made things voluntary, saying that BP and above, office is open. You can come to office if you want. And I'm seeing a lot more people coming in, actually. and they're excited about just walking around, meeting people. When it really will hit them to say, no, now it become more regular, we will see
Routine.
how we'll see. But right now, don't see, the resistance has still not come because we haven't really started getting a lot of people. But I can give you from my experience of China, Japan, and Taiwan, where 70-80% people are coming in, we have not seen any resistance. Actually, some people just wanted to get back to office. And it is also because this whole pandemic has made them feel not being normal, not having a normal life. And people want to get back to normal.
And so there is a difference in the way that you will re-induct as you try and make it more regular. You will re-induct people back to the office a little differently from the hires you make during the pandemic as opposed to the pre-pandemic teams. That you think is important to do.
Yeah, that is important because people who've been in the company, they know everybody, they know the places, they know office where they need to go. But people who we hired during the pandemic, we'll need to do a full office orientation, getting them to meet leadership face to face, kind of putting together some kind of a fun thing in the office. So my teams are working on how do they make it more exciting for people to land up in the office day one.
Yeah, I have a bunch of questions from the audience, and I'll ask one more, and then we'll get to the questions from the audience. In terms of informal networks, do you see that people have built informal networks and are closer in a peer and collaboration-wise, people who were hired remotely with other people who were hired remotely? And obviously, the old pre-pandemic teams have each other and have that history, or you've seen sort of appropriate and sufficient intermingling of these two cadres coming together?
I think that has really suffered. The informal networks by people who just joined during pandemic, they have a lot more work-related network. I don't think they've kind of been able to really build saying, let's catch up for a drink or let's catch up or just call up and ask. I think the work during this period became much more transactional because see, also remember that, even though people were at home, there were a lot of demands on them from home side. I mean, everybody was doing their own cleaning and all cooking because initially many months the support staff was not coming. And when you are at home, your kids are also working online, studying online. So they have some tech problem. They want some question. That parents are available, so they are available. They don't, even if they're working, they're available for anything. The employees' parents think, okay, if my son or daughter is away working from home, they are available to do other sundry work also. So in that way, I think people have been much more. So what has happened is the work and Zoom calls have become just with very focused. This is what we need to discuss, and then get off and you get into so many. So people have not been really able to take out time to say, okay, this person though I've never met, let's call and catch up to see how the person is doing. It's also they've not kind of got that comfort to, and some people would have done it. I'm saying there are, it depends also on the people. Some people would have still done it, but I think most people have not really built that relationship and network.
Those interest-based affiliations that people who would play soccer together, would be playing together on the weekend, right? Like somebody who's who must do Friday drinks, catches that.
That has not happened. There would be some people who would have done it, but largely I can say that's really one thing which has not happened. And that's why I keep saying that, stories are not getting built anymore. We need to get the stories built.
Yeah, and like that Yuval Noah Harari, the historian, says the human beings are, as a race, we are more successful than any other species. It's because of our ability to create and tell stories, right?
Absolutely. And we are in a storytelling business, so.
Okay, I'm going to take some questions. There's a question from Jayashree Jayant, who's Director of People and Culture at My Capital. She's saying, how can we attract and retain the right talent through a hybrid work model? Have you seen it? Was there a difference in the talent pools and the talent caliber you were able to access while hiring remotely?
We have not seen that much in India, but I can tell you in US and in a couple of more markets, if the job advertisement doesn't talk about flexibility or a hybrid, people are not even applying. Okay, so I think retention. So hybrid will certainly make it more easier for us to attract and retain, versus saying we go back to the old ways of full on-site for everybody. So it's going to be much more easier to tell people that we are going to be flexible and we will allow you and we'll give you space to manage your work life. It's going to be much more easier for us.
There's a question that's come up, and I think two people are essentially asking the same thing: the difference between flexibility and engagement. And I think this is to the earlier point, especially with new hires, right? And this is to your earlier point about you have to take charge of your own growth right now, right? And you have to take charge of your own engagement. What do you recommend, especially to so many people around the world who are joining new jobs as remote hires first, about how do they individually push themselves to feel more engaged and interconnected in the company?
I all the time that take out time, reach out, go beyond whatever is your just work area to say, how do I talk to someone else who's doing interesting work? Figure out, go and I always believe, and this is one thing we tell in Star to every new hire who comes in, that even before pandemic, I used to tell them that, it's a very busy company. Everybody is absolutely full-time, and stressed and they're working. So they will not realize that you're struggling. If you're new, it's your responsibility to shout for help or ask for any information you need. And once you shout for help, 20 hands will come to help you. But if you are sitting next to the person and the person will not know you're struggling. So it's your responsibility to reach out, ask for help. And that's what I say now also. That reach out, understand. If you want to know about something has happened, a particular product or innovation has happened and you want to know more about it, just reach out directly and everybody will give you that 10, 15 minutes to half an hour. Nobody will say no. They may not do it immediately, but they'll come back and say, okay, we can talk next week. So I think it's ownership, accountability, and taking responsibility is going to be extremely important for everybody to build those relationship connects. And once we start getting to office, then walk around and meet more people.
And are you happy with the level of curiosity that you see people, and not just at Star Disney, but as you're seeing, workforces, friends, family, cousins, everyone, because so many leaders tell me this, that everybody wants to, say that, oh, we want to know what happens in the company, but nobody actually asks any specific questions. And we do town halls and people don't attend. And actually, we want as smart leaders, we want to be pushed by our employees, right? It's like how even as parents, you will, you take pride if your child asks a really tough question. I think similarly, you take pride, which I think a lot of employees don't understand, that when you push us, because it shows a demonstration of genuine interest in the company. But are you seeing that decrease?
I'll tell you, it is very ingrained in our culture and in our society, both the whole of Asia. Kids in our generations or earlier were not encouraged to ask questions. Just do what you are being told to do. It's the coming generation which is being encouraged to ask a lot of questions, and you will see that difference. You will see a lot of time in meetings, people have questions, but they're scared to ask, or they just think that, the biggest thing which stops people from asking question is that, will I be seen as stupid? Or is it not an important question to ask? And I think that's one thing which every leader should encourage, and saying, no question is really a stupid question, but it's going to take some time to change. We still see not many questions coming up. We still, since there are a lot of HR people in this call, the hand in the heart, I'm going to ask them, how many of you would have planted questions in your town hall? All of us do all the time, right? So that the leader doesn't feel that nobody asked any question. And initially, once you do the one or two planted question gets asked, then other people open up and then they'll ask more questions. So I think there is a hesitancy, and there's a very, it's generations of training and, telling people that it's not good to ask questions from your seniors and from your elders. It's something it'll take few years or maybe a few decades to kind of, go. But I see today's generation, they're not scared. They ask all the questions.
So good. So I think, Amita, to people who are listening, who are given the chance to ask a question, please ask it then. And I think to all HR people who are planting questions in town hall, continue to do it. It will eventually lead to a culture change.
Absolutely. Because when you plant questions, some people, then people start opening up and, nobody wants to be the first one to ask a question. Very few people want to be the first one to ask a question.
Yeah, I get, like I always say to our the teams at Harappa that I might not always know the answer, but what
Absolutely.
I love is a tough question, right? So what you can impress is a tough question. Last conversation, we have a couple of minutes, Amita. Last conversation. What is the one thing over the last 18 months that you've constantly told managers of people you have recruited remotely, right? What have you, like that you have said this now so many times to managers, about what to do and what to change in the induction, onboarding, the way that they settle people?
I have constantly told people to know their teams, okay? Understand, be there for them. Because especially this has been tough times. So for me, more than watching for delivery or watching for work, I've said, what happened? I mean, last year we actually decided in most part of this thing saying that we are not going to differentiate on bonuses, okay? Because everybody is in a really bad boat and all together. But what we have always pushed leaders to say that, do you know what your employee is going through? Do you know if they have a problem in their family? Do you know if there's a personal family member or any family member going through COVID? And are you there for them? So empathy is one thing which I've asked them all the time, and we have pushed. So our leaders have always been there, 24/7. Our leadership team has been there for their team, and that's one thing we recently did our engagement survey, and that's one thing which has come out for our parts of the world is that the kind of support and care the leadership and the organization showed during pandemic has been incredible.
Okay. And I have to ask on this question about this empathy and really know your teams, right? And be there for them 24/7. I was in one of these conversations, and the gentleman I was speaking to, he said earlier we used to take work home. Now actually home is at work, because, when we are doing a Zoom call, and he said that's the big change that has happened that we're all dealing with. How does one balance, especially in organizations like yours, which are global, where so much of the culture about privacy, right? And whether it's on mental health, whether it's on preferences of work style, sexual preferences, all of those kinds of things, how do we are there genuinely as human beings and as people for our team members, and yet not cross the privacy line, right? That's a very tough, I feel like that's a very, very tough balance.
Yes, absolutely. No, it's a balance, and I don't know that everybody's got that balance. I'll be very honest. Yeah. So some leaders get it. Some are still not able to get there. But it's everybody has to take that journey. But in terms of really work-life balance, I always tell everybody that now that you're at home, and and the boundaries are blurred, and if you have, let's take late night calls, then take a afternoon nap. Nobody's going to stop you. Or take the evening free, or in the morning an hour free to spend with your kids. So I mean, everybody has to just learn to balance and plan and do that.
And balance empathy and privacy also, right? That's one thing I'm like, oh my God, how much should I get into this person's life to really be able to help them? Yeah. It will need going into a zone that, I mean, I don't know how much I'm equipped to deal with.
What I have seen, people have not been really bothered about privacy much. If they were going through a tough time, if they had a issue with themselves having COVID or family members, they've reached out, and the teams have reached out to help. So I don't think there's been so much of an issue on privacy, but it's been because they've seen empathy. And when people see empathy, it's not phony just trying to figure out. It's been really truly caring, and people have not been so concerned about my privacy.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Amrita. We're at the end of the conversation. So many rich insights. Thank you so much for sharing so frankly, and lots to take back, I think, for all of us. Thank you, everyone, for joining us and for kicking off a new season of Thai Talks about getting real, about hybrid. Amrita, I hope you enjoyed yourself.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And thank you, everybody, for taking our time. As I tell everybody that time is the biggest gift you can give to anybody. So for all of you to give me that gift of your time. So thank you for that. And Shreyasi, I really enjoyed your questions. They were quite insightful. And we are also we've just started the journey of bringing people back to, I won't say back to work, at least back to office. Everybody has been at work all the time. Nobody
Yes.
has been not backward, not on work. So it's going to be a journey to bring people to office, and we'll learn on the way and
We'll all
figure things.
learn. That's a good thing, we'll all learn. Thank you very much. And thank you, Amita, for your gift of time for Harappa and Thrive Talk. Have a great evening, everyone, and see you again for the next edition of Thrive Talks next Wednesday. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.